Folks, welcome back to the PlayAction Podcast, brought to you by PlayActionPools.com. I'm your host, Christian McCullum. Have a very special guest tonight. I'm really excited about this one. A guy I've been following a lot on Twitter. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Great follow. Paul Atwall. I would say better known as, but now I'm going to say also known as HossYJuke on Twitter because he's kind of, put his name out there a little bit more recently. Doing some stuff for Pewter Report, breaking down the Bucs, X's and O's, film, everything. I can't say enough about this guy. Paul, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Christian. It's a pleasure.
All right. First of all, I want to get into your background. Like I said, you do a phenomenal job breaking down the X's and O's and schemes of, the NFL. Very, very few people can do it at your level. How did you get into all this?
Oh, yeah, I feel like I'm getting a little too much credit. I was honestly just a fan, and I always found X's and O's fascinating. It's always been the most interesting part of the game for me, so I'm always consuming a ton of content, just following all the other people that put out X's and O's content, trying to learn what I can. I keep a notebook with me. I write stuff down. Obviously, all 22 helps a lot. You notice some patterns, and you see something, you're like, oh, what is this? I don't know what this is, and it's really helpful when you have a couple people that you can send things to as well and ask them. And yeah, honestly, just taking it from there, I feel like I've learned a lot over the last few years, and there's still a ton to learn.
HossYJuke, that's your Twitter handle. A lot of people know that. What's the relevance of that?
Oh, I think it's the famous Patriots play that they ran so much with Brady over those 20 years, and I think it's most well known for that Rams 2018 Super Bowl, 2018, that's right, yeah, where they ran it 3 straight times in a row on that final drive. It's just a cool play that works pretty well against a lot of coverages, so and I like the way it sounded.
Okay, that's cool. Now, you have some players and some teams you follow. Obviously, like I said, you write for the Pewter Report. Brady's your guy?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it has to be, right? If you're covering the Bucs, if you're writing for them.
Okay, all right. Now, you've been following them, since he got down there really closely, at least that long. And it, even though they won the Super Bowl last year, it seems like this year they're kind of starting off even better offensively. And I think you noticed some of this going back to last year. What's kind of been the how has this come about in terms of Brady and Leftwich and Arians? What have you noticed as they continue to work together?
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, it's continuing to evolve. Like you said, it's even better so far this year, in my opinion. The biggest things that I think have been talked about quite a bit is after that Week 13 bye last year, they came out a lot more passing on early downs, at least for the regular season, and reverted in the playoffs. But as an aside, more motion, more play action. I think those things really helped them out a lot. And then going into this year, to me, it seems like they're just doing a better job of pairing concepts to coverages. One thing I wrote about was last season, they really struggle against middle of field open coverages, which is, to anyone who doesn't know, is just basically a catch-all term for too high coverages. And the Bucs weren't nearly as effective against those coverages as they were against single high. And a part of that was because they're so vertical. They're so insistent on being vertical. And I was really curious how that would look this year. So far, so the first game was against Dallas, very single high base team. It's that Seattle system with Dan Quinn. So we didn't get to see it too much there, and they looked great against single high. We already knew that. Week 2, Atlanta, they came out, played a ton of cover 2, and the Bucs, they stayed patient. They picked their spots. They took stuff underneath. They were, again, just pairing the right concepts to beat it. It's not necessarily rocket science. It's more so just let's pick the right stuff. And the Rams, I thought, were the biggest test. And I know they only put up 24 points, which for them is only 24 points, and they lost. But when you look at the process that went behind it, when you look at the execution, the play calls, things look way more crisp. They put up 24 points last year too, but it was a way cleaner game this year. And again, I think Brady and Arians and Leftwich, they're just starting to kind of get on that same page, see things the same way. And everything's just really making sense. When you look at the tape, you're not scratching your head like, why would they do this? Which is something that I found myself doing quite a bit, especially early last year.
You talked about the increase of play action and motion. Why are those concepts so important for an offense, especially from an analytical view? You hear the analytic guys always like play action, want to see more of it in motion. Why is that so important to you guys?
Yeah, so motion, I think it does a ton of different things, and yeah, there are things that I don't even understand as far as like in detail, but I know one, okay, the main thing is it can help you ID coverages, like man zone indicators. You can get that from a lot of different ways, from just the way you line up your formation. I mean, honestly, a lot of times just from looking on TV, you should be able to tell if it's man or zone. So, I mean, if people watching TV can tell, I'm sure the quarterbacks can, but it does help. There are a few percentage differences, like maybe you can tell, I don't know, X percent of the time without motion, but like X plus Y percent with motion, and maybe that difference isn't huge, but it is something. The other thing it can do is it can screw up the defense's gaps in the run game. They have to shift over in a certain way to try to account for how the formation is changing. It forces last second communication. Let's say you, as the offense, line up in a 2-by-2 set. The defense is going to have certain coverage rules for how they're going to handle that. Now, last second, right before the snap, you shift to 3-by-1. That's a different rule. Or similarly, if you're in a spread look and then suddenly, the Patriots did this a lot where they just motion into a stack look and then they switch release off of that. So suddenly it's like, oh, you got that guy, I got this guy. Oh, whoops, we both went to the same guy. This other guy's wide open underneath. That kind of stuff. So it forces the defense to communicate. It just gives I think a good way of putting it is it gives the defense more chances to make a mistake. And with play action, I mean, I think it's pretty intuitive why it's so good, right? So long as it's first down, second down, anything other than third and long, and the threat of the run is there, you're going to be able to draw in the linebackers and create a lot of extra space. And it also slows down the pass rush because the defensive line goes from worrying about their gap responsibilities, especially if your play action blocking looks like a run. They go from worrying about their run responsibilities to then trying to pass rush, and they've kind of lost their momentum and takes that extra time to get there. So one, it can create more open spaces. Two, it slows down the pass rush, and the numbers bear this out. I mean, in terms of yards per attempt, I mean across the league, it's much higher with play action than without.
All right. Now Brady, as far as Brady goes, I mean, Chris Collinsworth mentioned in the first game, is he better at 45 than he was in 25 or 44 or 24? It seems like he is. Is it just the fact that him and Leftwich and Arians are on the same page now, or are there things that he's physically doing that are better than he's been doing in recent years?
Well, he's probably 25. What would that mean? That's like one of his first seasons in the league, right? He's probably better than then, but I'm not willing to go as far as saying he's better than like his 30s, right? Like the 07 season. I'm not willing to go that far. But I will say he looks fantastic. He definitely, to me, on tape, looks better at 44 than he did at 43 and at 42. 43 was last season. There are things that are noticeably better. One was came out after the season that he played the entire year with a torn MCL. So at times when I was watching the tape last year, one thing I noticed was that in-pocket mobility that he'd become so famous for, where he just slides up a second, feels that pressure, and just buys that extra few milliseconds even. It can make such a big difference. That seemed like it was gone. If there was any sort of threat of a pass rush, he was getting rid of the ball, or those extra plays weren't there. I certainly wasn't thinking to myself, oh, he's playing hurt. Can't go that far. I just thought this is a natural symptom of him being 43. And now suddenly this year, I mean, I just went to the Rams game alone. I think I jotted like 10 plays just from that one where he's moving in the pocket or scrambling. And that's not necessarily going to buy you, 30 yards every game, but maybe every third or fourth game it results in an extra first down, or maybe a few more yards. And that type of thing can, when you're at the level of Brady, like those small little improvements, that's as big as it's going to get. And there's huge differences. And I also think that his ball placement has just been unbelievable this year. It was certainly, I mean, he had a great year last year, but so far in these 3 games, the way he's able to just put the ball perfectly in soft spots down the field in against coverages, and not only that, but he and the receivers seem way more on the same page. You see guys are sitting down in soft spots at the exact moment that Brady's expecting them to. Like, they're making their cuts as he's letting go of the ball, whereas last year it's more like he's patting the ball, waiting for someone to turn around, or, in that week 1, I think like Evans read it as like middle field closed, it cut off his route in a certain way, where Brady read it as middle field open. Like those type of miscommunications where you're trying to read a play during the play, those things are so much clearer now. And I don't think Collinsworth is exaggerating by saying, well, Yeah, I think he's right. Basically, I think Brady's it's crazy. He's getting better at 44 than 43.
So then the question everyone asks when it comes to Brady, and they always ask, I mean, how long, like, realistically, can he continue to do this?
No idea, right? I mean, you can't even expect him to have done it at 44. But I was actually listening to a podcast with Albert Bright. Is that
Breer,
the
Albert
insider?
Breer.
Might have been from Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
Anyway, he was talking about how supposedly all these guys that come from this Tom House school, he's like that mechanics coach for anyone who doesn't know. A lot of guys work with him, Brady, Breeze, a handful of others. Supposedly, a lot of Tom House's own research has kind of shown 45 as like a big drop off point for guys. So apparently, they were talking about how even going back a few years, Breeze, he didn't make it, but a lot of these guys are setting 45 as the target point. Brady has set that for a long time. And supposedly the number isn't arbitrary. It's more so that they expect 45 to be the age where your body really starts to struggle with recovery. Now, obviously, that's not a hard set number, and it's going to be slightly different for everybody. And the interesting thing is Brady has even hinted at going past that. Recently, he was saying that his contract's over after next year, but he might sign on for another year, maybe another 2 years. And it seems like he's not committing to calling it quits at 45, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, like you explained, the Bucs offense looks really, really good, even better than last year. How about the defense? What's the defense looking like right now? What are some of the question marks there? I mean, they just signed Richard Sherman. Is that to fill a need?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, so far this secondary has really struggled, and a part of that is injuries. They've lost Sean Murphy-Bunting. Jamel Dean was hurt last game, though it's looking like that might not be too bad. But yeah, overall the secondary has really struggled the first three games, and sure they haven't faced the easiest opponents, at least offensively, right? You're going up against Dak Prescott, Matt Ryan, and Matthew Stafford, of course. But this was an issue even going back to parts of last season. It can be easy to forget because of how dominant they obviously were in that playoffs. But that's not how they were for the entirety of the season. I mean, the thing that was so surprising, and I shouldn't even say playoffs, I should say the last three games because Taylor Heineke, as we all remember, lit them up. The thing that really helped them turn around and was so surprising in the playoffs was Bowles really went away from what he's been famous for. He's very much a single high, cover three, spot drop zone, and some lots of five-man pressure kind of guy. Whereas in those playoff games against the Saints, it was a lot of tight man, cover one, like making Breeze, like daring him to throw it deep, right? Basically, right? And then in the Super Bowl, it was a ton of two high coverages, way more quarters than they've been playing all year. They barely played any two-man coverages all year, and they played a ton of two-man, cover six. So they really went away from what they've been doing all year. And interestingly, now to start this season, it's been back to what Bowles was doing early last season, which is, again, spot dropping cover three. He is playing more cover two zone so far. I mean, it's not particularly working, but again, a lot of that spot dropping stuff, and we're seeing a lot of softer coverages. And I'm wondering if he's going to go back to some of that tight man stuff. Again, it's going to be hard since the defensive back depth is being challenged. But yeah, I think I'm not like this isn't coming out of nowhere is kind of what I'm trying to get at. I'm not totally surprised. It's more so that playoff run, if anything, was like whoa, where did this come from?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know you've had a chance to dive in a little bit to Patriots stuff. Obviously, Sunday night's huge game. Tom Brady going back to Foxborough to play the Patriots and Bill Belichick. It's an epic game. I know you've had a chance to dive in a little bit at the Patriots and check out what they've been doing. What have you gleaned from that film so far?
Yeah, so I'm not counting just watching them on TV, which I've done. I've seen all their games, but as far as tape, I want to say I've seen around 5, maybe 6 quarters so far. So a really small sample size, but I have noticed a few things, and I've seen some data on this too. And one, defensively, like they've been for the last few years, it's a very single high, cover one man, cover three type of team. And I think that I'm really curious how they're going to approach this game against the Bucs, because like I mentioned earlier, the Bucs are fantastic against single high, and the reason for that, I know you know this, but the reason for that is you only have a single high safety in the middle of the field. If you have great deep options on the outside, that safety can only help one way or the other, right? So, just think about 2 go routes on the outside. Well, obviously the Bucs have a ton of deep threats, so it makes it very challenging on teams. So I'm curious, do the Patriots, do they move around, away from what they've been doing and become more of this too high team for this game? My guess is they do, and Belichick defenses have always been very versatile and willing to adapt, but they do have this bit of they're going to have to kind of balance that, right? Where it's like, one is, do we want to do what we're really good at? Or 2, do we want to do what we think is schematically the best matchup for this exact game? So that's the defense. Offensively, it's been interesting. With Mac Jones, he has a lot of positives, but the thing that we have to remember with rookies is they're not supposed to be good, right? I think Herbert was this huge anomaly last year, and Mahomes in his second year, obviously being great. But when you actually look at the numbers as a whole, rookie first round quarterbacks, I think specifically, if you only look at them, they tend to be slightly below average quarterbacks in their first season. So with Mac, what I've seen so far is a guy who's very accurate. He has strong footwork. The timing is great when it's on his first read. When he does a good job of identifying things pre-snap, and if it's like something like press man, he's gonna, and with single high, he's gonna take that 5-step drop and he's gonna throw that fade ball and it's gonna be pretty accurate. Or if it's an underneath thing, whatever, it's on time. But in the stuff that I've seen, he's really struggled with getting through his reads on time. There was a play, I want to say, Jonnu Smith, was it? He's just wide open on this check down, and Mac, I think, pats the ball once, stares at it for so long before finally letting it go, right? And some of those timing elements on that second and third read, I think those are really where he's looking to improve right now.
Okay. So when you're watching this game on Sunday night, will you be looking for those things as indicators, to see, what the Patriots come out in defensively, if Tampa's making Mac get to his second read and struggle with that? Do you watch that? Is there indicators right away of how the game's going to play out in the end, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely do try my best to look out for that. The problem is, obviously, you can't always see everything on TV, but there are certain plays where you can see how many safeties are up there, and certainly with replays at times you can see. So I'm definitely, on the very first drive of the Bucs possession, I'm going to be looking out. Are they in single high, are they in man, are they in zone? How are they approaching this? And one other thing with the Patriots offense, to answer your question, you're asking about making Jones get to his second and third read. I think one way that the Bucs will do that is they will continue to play it very zone heavy, I think. Because with man, as a quarterback, you can kind of pre-snap, be like, what's my best matchup? That's kind of where I'm going to go. So you don't necessarily have to get to that second read maybe as often. Whereas with zone, it puts a little bit more of the post-snap onus on the quarterback to make that read.
When are we going to be able to watch all 22 live? You should probably know. I'm sure you've looked that up. When are they going to give us a channel for all 22?
I would love that, man. So John Ledger and John Ledger from Pewter Report, we do live streams during the game, and we joke about this all the time, where we would love to be able to get the all 22, because we're, as best as we can, we're trying to call out concepts in real time. So there'll be plays where I can see, they just ran this, and we'll call it out. But I wish we could. I remember actually. I want to say it was last year's playoffs. It might have been the year before, but I think it was last year, where ESPN, they did something similar to what they're doing now with the Mannings, where they had a simulcast, and it was like Hasselback and a few other guys, and they actually were giving an all 22. It wasn't the exact one, but it was a wide shot where you could see all 22 players. It was freaking awesome. I wish we could watch every game like that, but I think most people hate it, which blows my mind. I mean, they just want to zoom in on the quarterback.
I don't get it. I mean, sometimes they'll do that for the College Football National Championship and stuff like that. And my full-time job, with IrishSportsDaily.com, I used to be the beat writer and go to every game, and you're watching it from the press box. It's perfect. I mean, yeah, you're not going to feel the hits or hear the electricity, but you can see everything. So you can see every matchup. You can see when this guy's one-on-one, where the safety is, and at the snap, what the quarterback's be thinking. They got enough channels now. If people don't like it, just like if people don't like the Manning Bowl, I'm watching Monday Night Football with my dad the other night, and he's like, are they going to be over there the whole time on the screen? Like, yes, man, that's what they're there for, dog. People don't like it, watch the other channel. They can put it on another channel.
I think so. Yeah, I could see, you know what? I think once we go more digital, I could see it being way more of a thing, right? Because right now, with the way it is. You need a whole channel dedicated to it, and I'm guessing it's a bit more tricky, right? You need ESPN2 or whatever, and that's an actual channel on people's TV guides. Whereas I don't know a lot about this stuff, but I'm guessing when it goes, say, eventually completely digital, which who knows when that'll be, it might be easier to provide these kind of alternate cameras. Or I think Sunday Night Football used to do that, where you could pick your own cameras on their web browser. So at least I'm hoping that's what happens, man, because I would love to be able to see the game that way in real time.
I think people might not like it initially, but I think the more they watched it and the more they understood even the basic framework of the concepts and stuff that you guys are talking about, I think people would realize they really, really like it.
What do you think of Madden Cam?
What's Madden Cam?
That's like the camera angle behind the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. It's hard. It's hard when you like to see the depth of how far things are going. But I like all the different angles. Anything that's different, I'm like in. I'll watch a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Right.
Do you prefer it?
So I don't prefer the Madden Cam over, like, say, a sideline all 22, but I do prefer it over the regular broadcast camera. I get what you mean with the depth, but my thing is like, okay, at least I can see the routes, I can see the coverages, which is like, I'll take it, just give it.
And even on running plays, I mean, you can see a little bit more of the lanes and stuff, where what's open and how it's open, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Sunday night, Patriots, Bucs. What's your prediction? Give us a prediction.
Oh man, so I mean, I'm never counting Belichick out. I think he can make it competitive even with a inferior roster, but I think it's too much. I think the Bucs are going to win. I think they're going to win by 2 scores, 10 plus points. Brady's going to probably break that record early in the second quarter, and I think it's going to be an all-around great night for the Bucs.
All right, we really appreciate it, Paul. Like I said, you have to follow him on Twitter at HossYJuke. Check him out at the Pewter Report, pewterreport.com. And he mentioned the live stream he does with John Leonard. Check that out, too. They'll have that there. You can find that on his Twitter. You can find that on Pewter Report. In the second screen experience right there, you're not going to get anything better. You're not going to get better analysis than you're going to get from Paul and John.
Thanks so much, Christian. Appreciate the kind words.
Thanks, Paul.